Hi.
How are you? Oh my God.
Hi.
Oh my God, sister.
My younger sister, Nerissa, had walked in. I sat in the living room with her and she was just crying. I said, well, what happened? And she said, he's dead. He's freaking dead.
When I went to court the first few times I lied. When as a kid, you're scared and stuff like that. And the third time I said I fessed up to what I did. I stabbed him and beat him up.
You know, it's tough when you do time, when you do years, but meeting the girls, it was, we knew they shouldn't have been there. They should not have been there from day one.
And there's nothing complicated about the fact that she did nothing wrong when we have the person responsible for having committed the crime saying so publicly on television. She needs to be released now.
After 30 years, there's a glimmer of hope as Justice Minister David Lametti has agreed to review their sentences.
I feel like me and my sister are gonna finally get the justice we deserve after how many 30 years?
It's the first weeks of spring on the Kisakus First Nation, a small Saulteaux community 3 hours north of Regina, Saskatchewan.
We're going to all grab some tobacco and we're going to put it here for David.
APTN Investigates spoke with Odelia Quewezance while on day parole in May of 2022. It was the first time she set foot on her traditional territory in nearly 3 decades. She is here to pay her respects to the one man that was instrumental in her release, David Milgard.
When I heard the news, it was like losing my brother. You know how I felt? He messaged me and he said he always has that free Nerissa, free Odelia.
Milgard was the victim of one of Canada's most infamous wrongful convictions. Before he passed, Milgard dedicated the last months of his life to help secure the sisters' freedom.
For David, the big thing is going to be your freedom for both of you. That's if he was here now, he'd say that's the most important thing in his life.
It was a promise that Milgard didn't live to see fulfilled, but one his friends and colleagues still aim to keep. We first brought you the story of Odelia and Nerissa Quewezance back in 2020. The sisters have been in and out of federal prison for the last 30 years, all stemming from their convictions in the murder of 70-year-old farmer Anthony Joseph Dolff in Kamsack, Saskatchewan. February 25, 1993. According to court documents, Odelia, then 21, Nerissa, 19, and their cousin Jason Kashane were all drinking at Dolph's farmhouse.
He was making sexual advances towards me. I remember we were drinking. I went in the room with him, and he wanted to give me money to have, sex with him.
Things turned violent after an envelope with $700 in cash went missing. And, according to Odelia, Dolff started to make advances on her sister.
And I think I finally just, I told him, leave my sister alone, not to bother her. And then that's when this all broke out and this stuff happened.
By 4 a.m., Joe Dolff is dead. 17 stab wounds, 2 in his heart. Odelia and Nerissa were charged with second-degree murder soon after. Both women entered pleas of not guilty, but were ultimately sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 10 years.
I didn't do it. I didn't kill him.
Their cousin Jason Cashane, 14 at the time, later confessed to the killing. He was also charged with second-degree murder, convicted as a youth, and sentenced to 5 years. APTN Investigates spoke with him in 2020.
Are Odelia and Nerissa innocent?
I can pretty say much so, yeah.
Yeah?
Very much so, yeah. When I went to court that time, the judge didn't say anything or listen to what I had to say. He just heard my testimony and sent me on my way, and you were found guilty of it, you know? First few times I didn't say it. I lied. I said I wasn't there and stuff like that, you know? The second time I said I was there, but I left before everything happened. And the third time I said I fessed up to what I did. Because as a kid, you're scared and stuff like that. You're worried and what's going to happen. And
Do you think they should be free?
yeah, I think so. I know so, you know, coming from me. I stabbed him and beat him up.
Shortly after APTN Investigates broke the story, Odelia was released from prison on day parole. She returned to her home community of Quewezance for the first time last May.
Was the house.
So where did the RCMP come?
Here.
Just in the front?
Yeah.
This is the cells, right?
On the other side were the cells. This is the door we came in.
James Lockyer is a criminal lawyer and founder of Innocence Canada. He specialized in wrongful convictions.
And I remember, I barely remember, but I remember when they brought a priest in there because they thought we were part of the cult.
This is the former Campsack RCMP detachment. It's where Odelia and Nerissa were first locked up following the murder of Joe Dolff. According to court documents, the sisters were held and interrogated here for 5 days without the presence of a lawyer.
I wonder if they are still cells.
They look boarded up.
Lockyer has taken up the Quewezance sisters' case pro bono. He has returned to Campsack with Odelia on a fact-finding mission and is hopeful that he'll be able to secure their freedom before the year is out.
Yeah, so this is the cells.
Getting very quick.
Let me open it for you.
Or lift it. There you go.
Yeah, glass.
James,
Yes?
she's not comfortable coming in.
Fair enough, I understand.
He says that's fine.
I understand that.
We'll see you.
But the women's cells are back here, right?
Yeah, one's the drunk tank, one's the cell block. I'm not sure. I think the drunk tank would have been the one on the
So their next step is we could be out in a month. Yes, my sister, my girl, no more prison life. I'm gonna be home with you girls and we're gonna make up for this. I love you. Oh, my girl, you'll be proud of Mom.
And the political will for justice in the case appears to be mounting.
How do you feel?
In June of 2022, Canada's Justice Minister, David Lametti, admitted that there may have been a miscarriage of justice in the case. The news came only hours after Odelia spoke at a news conference on Parliament Hill, where she asked Lametti to free her and her sister.
I'm asking to be free today. I'm asking to be free because I know in my heart I did not kill Mr. Dolff. I'm sorry that happened, but I can only, I'm just asking. My sister is still suffering in prison and she doesn't deserve that. And I don't deserve it.
If they'd been white, would they have been arrested in the first place for the murder? Probably not. If they were white and they'd been arrested for the murder, would they have been convicted of it? No. And if they were white and they'd been convicted of the murder, would they by now be out on parole? Absolutely, for sure they would. Of course they would. And that helps us understand how our justice system treats the Indigenous.
According to Lockyer, it's now up to Lametti to quash the convictions or order a new trial by finding evidence that the women have been wrongfully convicted.
Right now, I'm just in disbelief. Like I'm so great. I'm so much gratitude, and having this faith and not giving up. That's what me and Nerissa tell each other, not to give up.
November 2022. Odelia and Nerissa have applied to be released on conditions while their case is reviewed as a possible miscarriage of justice. The bail hearing is at the same courthouse where they were convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison in 1994.
Well, right now I'm feeling a little nervous and emotional. Like, I don't feel afraid. I don't feel nervous. I feel nervous in a way where I'm going to be seeing my sister after 18 years.
Oh my God, sister. Hi. Oh my God. I love it. Yeah. Oh my God.
In the end, the bail hearing was pushed to the new year. It's another in a long line of delays and setbacks on the sisters' journey to freedom.
I'm not giving up. I'm grateful for my lawyer and Deanna being here today, and my partner and my children, my sister-in-law here. So yeah, I just prayed my sister Nerissa's not to give up, and it's not over yet.
It's been nearly 2 months since the bail hearing for Odelia and Nerissa Quewezance was delayed. The sisters have returned to Yorkton, Saskatchewan in the hopes of long-awaited justice in their case.
Oh my God, sister. Oh, my sister. Hi.
I'm gonna bring you some clothes. Okay, how are you doing?
Guess who this is?
Oh, I wanted you.
I believe there's going to be a positive outcome, because I know there's a lot of people in the world right now praying for me and my sister today. A lot of people that have been in my same situation have been incarcerated, and people that haven't been incarcerated. So my prayers are today for our lawyers and for me and Nerissa, and that I pray that the judge has a good, open heart for us today.
Their story has caught the attention of a number of supporters over the years. Prisoner advocates like Canadian Senator Kim Pate.
We need to actually move quickly to get their conviction reviews happening. They have had a long history of from residential school, child welfare involvement, abuse, and now, far too many years, more than 3 decades in prison. So it's time for us to act and get them out.
At the 11th hour, the presiding judge announced that he would reserve his decision until his return from vacation.
This should be reconciliation today. And I only still believe in my heart that everything's gonna work out today. And I just keep praying every day for this. So my team wouldn't be here if they didn't believe we were innocent. Thank you. You guys, bless all you guys' hearts.
APTN Investigates returned to meet with Odelia. She has been on day parole for almost a year now.
But I'm hoping and praying that the judge would give us an answer, or he considers us to give us our bail and just to be free. That's what I'm hoping for. It's been a long time coming and waiting.
Odelia recently moved to Regina and is living at the local YWCA as part of her conditions. It's close to her family, where she can visit her partner and daughters on the weekends. Her sister Nerissa is still incarcerated for violating her parole.
Nerissa calls me once in a while. She's, she's waiting. She's like, just anxiety as much as I get. But she's staying strong, like we always tell each other to be strong and not to give up. But I told her, just don't lose faith.
But their story only scratches the surface. Indigenous women are the fastest growing prison population in the country and now account for more than 50% of all federally sentenced women.
When they first came into the system, they, like so many, particularly young people, and especially young Indigenous women, took responsibility for what they were a part of. They thought that because they were even there, they were just as responsible as their cousin. I didn't know till years later that their cousin had actually confessed to being the one to actually do the killing.
Kim Pate first met Odelia and Nerissa shortly after they were convicted and has been advocating on their behalf for a number of years.
Oftentimes we see, particularly the women that I've worked with who have histories of abuse, as these sisters do, who have histories of residential school abuse in there, as these sisters do, who have ended up in the child welfare system, ended up in the youth system, and ended up in the adult system, have taken on the responsibility that I would describe as, at best, moral, ethical, feelings of guilt.
Pate is one of 3 Canadian senators calling for the exoneration of 12 Indigenous women, including the Quewezance sisters, and for their cases to be reviewed for possible miscarriages of justice.
The reason we did the report is these are all women who either pled guilty or were found guilty and virtually no defense was put up for them. In some cases, evidence became more clear later on, as in Odelia and Nerissa's case, but in many cases, the information was there all along, but was either ignored or not seen as relevant or was not believed.
And for now, it appears as though the federal government is open to addressing mounting concerns surrounding wrongful convictions.
As minister, I've seen the process up close. When I look at the files that come to me, I see a clear pattern. The applicants are overwhelmingly white men, and our prison populations do not look like that. This tells me that the system is not as accessible to women or to Indigenous peoples or Black or racialized people who are disproportionately represented in our criminal justice system. We have to change that.
Justice Minister David Lametti recently introduced Bill C-40, or David and Joyce Milgard's law, would make it easier and faster for people who may have been wrongfully convicted to have their cases reviewed.
Today is the best possible news for the wrongly convicted in Canada. Finally, we have a tribunal that's independent of government, independent of the Department of Justice, that is going to review claims of wrongful conviction, something that we have been advocating for those 30 years.
Hi, buddy.
It's about time. We had to do our time as best as we could, laughing, joking, and you got to, like, you're in there for years, not months. So you got to make friendships, and you got to make the best of it, even though it's a prison. You can't stay sad. You got to do what you can every day. I'll finish cutting them, and you can cut them smaller, okay?
Okay. Holly Ross first met Odelia and Nerissa in 1994. The 3 women were incarcerated at the Regional Psychiatric Center in Saskatoon.
At that time, meeting the girls, it was, we knew they shouldn't have been there. They should not have been there from day one. And up to now, it's like, what is going on? There is something really wrong with the justice system. That's not fair to anybody, to any of them, family and to the girls. That's not fair. How much proof do you need?
Odelia is visiting Holly for some much-needed support. It hasn't always been an easy journey. Odelia has had her own battles with substance abuse over the years.
This is how I see it. I see it as creators teaching me. This is what happens in society today. You miss out on all these years, and now this is what really happens. And this is the kind of work I want to do. I want to get out, be free. I want to help our people, especially women. And like, seeing all that stuff is so hard. I guess I'm feeling like wondering what they have to say and stuff like that. Why does it have to continue to drag on? But I'm feeling pretty optimistic still. Not giving up.
Cameras weren't allowed inside the Yorkton courthouse. And while those gathered had hoped for some sense of closure in the case, in what's become an increasingly common theme, the judge once again delayed the decision.
I don't think the month delay is a real issue. He's said that he's willing to bring it forward if he makes his decision sooner, and I know that he'll be diligently working on it. Like today, he was very up on the current issues to do with this system, including the new legislation. He's up on the case law. I mean, I have every confidence that he's going to give a really thoughtful and well-reasoned decision, and I'm really hopeful that it'll go our way.
For now, both Odelia and Nerissa have no choice but to keep waiting. And even after 30 years in the system, they remain hopeful for a positive outcome. One more step on their long road home to freedom.
I just pray today that tomorrow's a good outcome. But you know what? I'm not going to sit here and say, what's another day? I waited 31 years, right? That's not fair. I shouldn't even have to wait another day. Me or my sister.